main topic, which talks about the mata in Tachlis, how the earth itself comes down so far below, and we're in the middle of speaking about how far below it comes down, even into a level that's klippa, and in the klippa itself, in the level, the worst level of klippa, the level of parai, who is not just denying the Eibishter or not appreciative for the gifts he is given, but even more so that he is puitaiba. Instead of um, appreciating the brachas that he got through Yaakov, that the Nilus rose towards him, instead of that, he goes ahead and believes himself to be a god and to be able to control the Nilus and that he made himself, etc., etc. So now the Maimer is going to explore further about what took place over there with the bracha with Yaakov, and therefore, by understanding that, will be understood even more so how great the descent is. Line 24, bottom of the page, page Chafal. Will be understood even more in depth. The great descent that the Odin Saf went to be able to come down to Mitzrayim and even to bench Pari with the Nilus rising towards him. According to the explanation of the Mittler Rebbe in his Sefer Torah Chaim, the Brahmaster Vayim, the case of Nasayim Yom, Paroi, Chaylim, on the title, on the Maimer titled by that pasuk. So over there, the Mittler Rebbe explains the Inyan Nilus concerning the Nilus. So the Rebbe says parenthetically, this is what he hints in the Maimer. When the Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe brings down, and Yaakov benched Pari, and the Maimer as brings down what Chazal say, what did he bench him with? Birchach Yalid Nils to cross it. He benched him that the Nile should rise towards him. Seemingly, it's not important for the Hemshech of the Maimer to explain how this particular detail. If you're just trying to say that Pari was unappreciative and he was the opposite of thankful and he took credit for himself, why is it necessary what the exact bracha was? He could have said that Yaakov benched Pari, that Mitzrayim should have everything that it needs, it should have all goodness and so on. What's the emphasis to know that the goodness would come through the fact that when Pari went towards the Nile, so then the Nile would rise up towards it? Why is it necessary to emphasize or to bring in that detail in the mind? So based on what we're going to learn now from the Mittler Rebbe, it'll be understood the idea behind the Nilus that's important to bring up. This river is the river of Nilus, that we're talking about the Nil, the Yair that it says over there in the pasuk that Pari dreamt that he was standing at the Yair. The Yair was the river Nile. Shuanor Harishon Ba'arba Naharis Sheyotzim Min Nahar Sheyotzim Edom Lahashkas Sagat. As we know, there was a river that came out of Eden to irrigate, to give water to Gan Eden, and there was from that river, it says in Chumash Bereshis, 4 rivers came out, and from the 4 rivers, what is the one? What is the first river? The first river that's enumerated is Pishon. And Pishon, the Chazal say, was associated and from which the Nile came out from. It says, this is what it says, that's what it says that by Gan Eden, that from there, from that river that came to give water and place water in Gan Eden, it separated and became 4 heads of rivers, and the first one's name was Pishon. That this river was still contained in and joined with the river that came directly from Eden. So the Rebbe explains behind the though the general idea of these four rivers came about after the idea that from there he separated, Mikol Mokim Liyoise Amnara Rishon still no being that was the first river. Therefore, it's still contained with, and it's joined in the river that comes out of Eden itself. So therefore, we find that this first river, the river of Pishon, the river that eventually became, or it's called by a different name, which is the Nilus, had a direct connection with Gan Eden. This river would irrigate every pleasant or beautiful tree that's planted in the garden. This river must be that it has in it the power that makes grow every type of supernal delight. That's toiv ba'atzim. It's essentially good. Just like every good and beautiful tree. In other words, from the fact that this is the same river that irrigated everything Gan Eden, and everything Gan Eden was obviously the highest level of goodness. So therefore, this river that Yaakov Avinu benched Parim with was of great power, spiritually as well as physically. And from this understood the great quality and advantage. And the bracha of Yaakov to Paroi, that the Nile should rise up towards him. It's not just an ordinary bracha that Yaakov could have blessed Paroi, said you should be successful, your land should have everything it needs. Ela bracha, Nile's biyos, it's a very high bracha. Tachlis habracha, the ultimate state of blessing. Meaning the Hainam Shacham Bechina Shakula Misachedes Barnar it's made in Mamish, a drawing down from a level that's included in and joined in the river that goes actually out of Eden, Shuin Tainig Elyon, the level of Eden. Eden is in the word Ma'adanim, pleasant and enjoyable things, meaning it's referring to the supernal delight. So Yaakov Avinu gave Pari a blessing in something that was a very high, lofty level. And now the Rebbe explains what and how this great level would have and did impact Mitzrayim. It says in line 24 on page Chav Beis, Yesh l'hoisim v'bir mailas hatoiv. Nim Shchayde Birkas Yaakov Lefari. We can add and explaining the advantage and quality of the goodness that came down through the bracha of Yaakov to Paroi. Tzemach Tzedek Boira Torah, like Tzemach Tzedek explains in Doira Torah, in the explanation of Pasuk Vayavoyu Ad Gorim La'atad Gomer, that they came when Yaakov Avinu passed away. So they came till the silo of Atad, Evil covered the Mitzrayim. This heavy, this difficult mourning from Mitzrayim. So before we bring what the Torah says on that pasuk, we bring in a question of the Zohar. Hegdim Kushis Zohar by prefacing the question of the Zohar. Ha'evu Yisrael miboyalei, my time in Mitzrayim, top of page Chav Gimel. The Zohar asks, why do we say it was a great mourning for Mitzrayim? It should have said a great mourning for Yisrael, for the Bnei Yisrael. What's it this mourning that was for the Mitzrayim? But rather, this is what they said. All that time that Yaakov was in Mitzrayim is Barich Arab Beginay, and the land was blessed for his sake, for the sake of Yaakov Avinu. Valda Mitzrayim Avadai Belusa. For this, the Mitzrayim were in mourning. The mourning was for the leaving of the bracha that came down from Yaakov. That's what they were mourning. And like it says that Yaakov benched Paroi, so it was that for that bracha that ceased, they were now in mourning. So the Tzemach Tzedek takes this idea that we just now learned in the Zohar and goes further. By that Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek explains. Shebirchas Yaakov lepari hois. Is Baruch Beis HaMitzri B'Glal Yisrael. The bracha of Yaakov to Pari was that the Egyptian homes, that the Egyptians, in other words, should be benched for the sake of the Yidden, ufishalo yishtabdu b'Yisrael, and then by extension they will not enslave the Jewish people. It is a bezoyar, like it's brought on the Zohar the Bezimna, the Yaakov Kayim Ba'olma, Lo Yis'amad the Shalt al Benoit. As long as Yaakov was alive, there was no nation that could rule over his children. And if the Egyptians, if the Egyptians would not have enslaved the Yidden through Yaakov Avinu's being alive, so then both would have benefited. Mitzrayim would have benefited because they would have had the brachas, like it says, that the house of the Mitzrayim would have been blessed. And obviously the Yidden would have had good because they would have been enslaved. And also the purpose of Mitzrayim would have also been fulfilled. V'yalu anitzutzim, and they would have elevated the sparks. Like it says beforehand in the Oira Torah, that what was the purpose of the bracha? So we know that a bracha is from the word hamshach. It says vayavrich Yaakov is like malim, that Yaakov, that vayavrich, not Yaakov, but vayavrich is like malim. He made the malim, the camels kneel. Vayavrich or hivrich sagefen means lowering down. That the bracha, shebracha zu, this bracha of Yaakov, yamshacha melmayla ma'ashvira v'atikum. It brought down from above higher than the level of where the breaking of the vessels of Toyu was at. And he brought down from a level that was higher, obviously, than the place where it was the repair of the breaking, where everything was already set into place after the breaking from Atzilus. Why was Yaakov Avinu drawing down from such a high level, a bracha, such a revelation from so high? That they should be able to be elevated, the sparks that fell into Mitzrayim. That's why he benched them. And this benefit of the Mitzutzas that Rebbe is going to explain was also beneficial for the Mitzrayim as well. Also for them, for the Mitzrayim would have been an elevation as well. Similar to what it says to join with this one. Like the Chazal say, the entire world was only created to join with this one. In other words, a Yid that does Torah mitzvahs. So the Chazal say, a Yid that has Yir Shamayim, that person, the entire world was created for him to have colleagues, to have friends, to have people around him. So it's talking about a singular. So the Rebbe says the Koyal Kolecha, it's referring to every single Yid. A person is obligated to say that for my sake the world was created. Like the Rambam says at length in his commentary on Mishnah, what is the purpose of the entire creation of the world? That so that the wise person for whom the world is created should have people to join him, should have fellowship, should have friends, and so on. So now the Rebbe adds an interesting thing, that this doesn't just mean that it's a one-way street, that the Chacham, the Yid that does Torah mitzvahs, gains from it. Moving, and it's understood, in addition to the benefit that the Chacham has, this joining affects and ascent also someone that becomes a colleague, a friend, joined with the Chacham. So therefore, by elevating the sparks in Mitzrayim, so then it's not just that it's an elevation and a benefit for the Yidden that elevate the sparks, it's also an elevation for the Mitzvah. So therefore, what it comes out like this, that Yaakov Avinu's bracha, because he was still alive, etc., so it caused that the Yidden had a good life, and the Mitzrayim had a good life physically. And also that the Yidden would elevate the sparks by the power of Yaakov Avinu's bracha, and the Mitzrayim, who were their colleagues and associates and so on, would benefit from the Yidden elevating the spark spiritually. So it was both a spiritual benefit and a physical benefit, both for the Yidden and for the Mitzvah. This was all during Yaakov's lifetime. Line 23, Matzenkin, Acher is Taltus Yaakov, as opposed to after the passing of Yaakov. That the Mitzrim enslaved the Yidden is Garnim Zalahem, Shehu Kwasar Makis. So this caused for them that they were hit, they were plagued with 10 Namakis. And even more so, Kamalaku Be'etzba Chulu. We learn out in the Haggadah, he says, we derive how much did they get hit when it says Etzba Lakimi. So and from that Chazal derive a whole bunch of things that it was much more than 10 Makkahs. It was how many Makkahs they had on Mitzrayim and how much more they had on the Yamsuf. So therefore, both the Yidden suffered and the Goyim suffered materially. That's why also where they stopped on the way to burying Yaakov, it was also a great mourning for the Mitzvah because they lost out as well from it. The effect of the bracha of Yaakov was twofold. In addition, the first matter was al kedusha, so there should not be a concealment on kedusha. Through the fact that the Mitzrim will enslave the Yidden, heaven forbid. That they will have all the benefits of the land or the goodness of the land of Mitzrayim. They were able to refine the sparks of holiness that's in the land of Mitzrayim. The second matter is that not only will it be beneficial for the Yidden, but also that through this there will be also a benefit also to Pari and the general land of Mitzrayim. That will be a blessed land in all material matters. So therefore, there was going to be a benefit for both. Therefore, after the passing of Yaakov, that along with his passing, the bracha of Yaakov left as well. So the Mitzrim began to enslave the Yidden. By days through that, they eventually lost. Not only the advantage that comes about through being joined with the Yidden, because through the elevation of the Yidden, we said those that are with the Yidden, they are elevated as well. They didn't even have that. But also, they were smitten with the 10 Makkahs. Not only was this a matter of a mourning, but it was a heavy mourning for the Mitzrayim. So now we're going to get back what we're talking about. Haray being a kfui toiva, line 13, second paragraph on page Chav Daled, excuse me, moving this is also understood concerning what's explained. The Hemshech of the Maimon of the Frierdiker concerning what it says that the Ein Sof is down below to no end. It refers to the very great descent down below. Like it was by Pari. They said, to me is the Nile, and I made myself. The Afsha and Yaakov is Pari. Though in truth, Yaakov was the one that gave the bracha to Pari. That he benched him, that the Nile should rise up towards him. That this Nilus is the hashpa of the ultimate supernal good of holiness that came out from the river that went out of Eden. Mitzrayim in such a way that it came down below to the land of Mitzrayim. Instead of being the most immoral place in the land, in the world, the purpose will be to join with this one. To join to holiness, until the ultimate goodness of holiness. Still in all, despite that, Mikol Makim is a Paul, it's a pari loimer yich liyoidevan yasasini. This effect of that pari that he said to me is the Nile, and I made myself. This is an activity of totally being unappreciative, totally being the opposite of appreciation. And even in this lowest, most level, there's the idea of the infinite light of the Eibishter is down below to no end. So this is an indication, this is an expression of how low the Ein Sof can come down. It can come down to such a place where even though there's such unbelievable benefits, still in all, the party is completely not recognizing of it and not thanking the Eibishter and appreciative for it, but rather taking the credit all for himself. Any questions before we go on to Isaiah? Okay.
So it's just arrogance that caused him to do this?
That's a matter of arrogance, yes.
Because it seems like why would they kill the golden goose?
To understand people is one of the most difficult things. Let's see if we can finish this mimer today. Line 28. The rest is relatively easy and down to earth. According to what we've spoken about before in the fourth Ois of the Maim, that the content of the general Maimer of and the Hemshech and Ramarim of the yard site is concerning the service of a person. It's understood that even what's spoken about here concerning Pari, it's applicable in the service of a person to Hashem. That's what the Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe continues. Quote, end quote. So too, there's to be found in the avoid of every single Yid, whether they are a business person, whether they are sitting in the tents of Torah study. And the Friedrich Rebbe goes on to explain, quote again, the business people think that the power and the strength of my hand made for me this wealth. Although he knows and believes that the Eibishter is the one that gives us the power to be able to be successful. And he also believes that the Baruch of Hashem is what makes him rich. And not only that, and he mentions the name of the Eibishter and every single matter in his business. He says, Baruch Hashem, I managed to close this deal. With Hashem's help, I'm going to meet this person. Now we're going to be able to make a good business deal, etc., etc. He's constantly mentioning Hashem. And the Kalmak is still in all. Still in all, he thinks that his power and the might of his hand. Now, it doesn't have to mean literally his hand, but also the hand of the his wisdom, the fact that I was smart, I was clever, is what stood me in good stead. And therefore, when things are going good, when he's successful in business, when he's on the up, or not just in business, in all matters, things are going good. He will be very strong in his existence. He will be very strong-willed and strong-minded and so on. That he's arrogant or prideful in his very existence. He feels that he's the big success because it was his chachma and so on that did this all, even though he attributes at the very same time all of this to the Eibush. But in him is the idea behind this. The Rebbe elaborates on what the Friedrich Rebbe just said. Like the Rebbe Marash explains this with greater explanation. In the Hemshech known as Maim Rabim at the beginning, it says in the pasuk, this is what the Rebbe Marash says, it says that Havaya Lekecha will bench you in everything that you do. So the Rebbe Marash explains the reason for the pasuk saying both names of the Eibishter together, Havaya and Lekecha. Why does that say Baracha Havaya Lekecha and also Havaya Lekecha, your God? Why don't you say Havaya Lekim? What's the emphasis on this combination of Havaya Lekecha? Peter, so the Rebbe Marash explains, When you understand that Havaya is your God, we know that Shem Elokim means power and strength and might. When you understand that your power, the Elokah Shelcha, the one who gives you power to be successful, is Havaya. You will not say that my power and the strength of my hand made for me this wealth and success. So when you realize that Havaya Elokecha, that Hashem is your power and your might and your strength, then he will bench you with all that you do. Now the Rebbe analyzes further the expression that says Bichol Ashetas. Well, it doesn't say Ubeirach Ashetasa, but it says Bichol Ashetas. The Indian Omer Bichol, the fact that it says in everything, Pirusha, it means everything he does will be good and successful. It's possible to be exceptional success, even if he does a minor thing, that he will become rich with an unbelievable riches just from a small little type of thing that he did. That is when his head is screwed on straight, when he realizes that Havai is Elokecha, that Hashem is his might and power. When the crookedness of a person makes his way crooked, to follow the many thoughts that are in the heart of a person. What are the many thoughts? So the Rebbe Marash explains, since he wants to keep up with the Joneses, like the expression in English is, he wants to be like others. He's chasing after and pursuing expensive things and precious things that are completely not according to his level and not according to his state and situation. Why do you need to have this particular type of clothes or car or house, etc., etc.? Because you believe that you should be like someone else that has that. And why would he think that he can attain it? By thinking Shadavar told him that the matter is dependent upon his effort, that he could put in the effort and gain it. It's his power and the might of his hand. So if he can do it, I can do it as well. So the Rebbe Marash explains, not only does he lose this idea that it says that that Hashem benches in everything that you do. It's additional to this, that he loses out in his physical things, also in comparison to what was up till now. Till he can come to something that's damaging or even matters of danger. Maybe the Gemara is like he brings examples of it. The Marash over there in Mayim Rabin brings an example of a person that feels he needs to have precious stones, and he goes diving underwater for pearls, because that's where they're found. They're found underwater. And the Rebbe Marash over there, if I remember correctly, goes into all types of details of different things that can go wrong with the diving bell that they used to use, and what can go wrong with other things. And he endangers his life. And then afterwards, he complains to the Eibishter and says, why did I get sick? Why did I get hurt? Etc., etc., when it was really his pursuit and running after riches that were not on his level. The Rebbe concludes, and all this begins from the premise that he believes the power and the might of my hand is what's responsible. So he says, I can do this, and I'll be safe, and I will get the riches that someone else has as well, and I'm entitled to it. Why not? And this is the idea of the Eretz Sof Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis when it comes to a Bal Eser. In tomorrow's shir, I didn't finish the Maimer. Tomorrow's shir will talk about how this is also by Yoshvei Oil, how this is also could be a similar type of thought where the person thinks that it's his own mind and it's his own wisdom by those that are involved in learning Torah all day. Stop over here. Any questions?